So before we get
Pretty sure.
started, I want to know off bat, what is your favorite horror movie? Because this is technically an special of Monster School, I call it, which is I'm calling it the influencer spotlight. Because you do influence, that's what's cool about it. So what would you consider your favorite horror movie to be, just so it fits the genre a bit?
The midsummer Get Out type thriller genre where it's sort of like psychological and just different like that. I like that
Right.
stuff. I like the Blair Witch Project. Someone brought that up when I was on TikTok Live the other day, and I'm like, I remember loving that movie, but I really haven't seen it in a while. I want to go
Right.
back and watch that. I like stuff that's a little off bat though.
It's weird. My co-host, that's the opposite of what she likes. She does not like the like Hereditary, Midsummer, like the get into your skin type. But it's cool to see that you do, because Midsummer is definitely like an acid trip in itself.
Weird. I've never done those types of drugs myself, the mushrooms and the whatnot. But I'm like, I feel like I don't need to after watching
Right,
this
the
movie.
way it's shot, it creates like this natural high almost.
Yeah, it's like weird.
But to get into it, so I wanted this to be basically you telling us quintessentially your well, yeah, some of your life story and what it means to be a burlesque dancer. So hit me with it.
Where do you where do you want me to start? Goodness.
Where did the influence start? Like when did you realize like you're like I like burlesque. I want to do burlesque, or was something you doing already like
Early.
led to burlesque, or like dance, or like what made you like that 1950s pinup girl type like sway about it? Because that's very uncommon. Like you say Betty Page to any girl this stage, it's like they don't know who it is. They're thinking you're thinking of Betty Boop.
I hate that. It's terrible. We've lost a lot of that stuff. I feel like to this new age of technology, where if it's not a high production value, like a lot of the stuff back then wasn't, people don't care about it, which it stinks because really interesting stories and lives and stuff, and whatever to learn about. But it started early. My mom is a big band performer. She
Mhm.
does a lot of like that genre of jazz and stuff. And she still does, and she did when I was a kid. So that's like just the music I grew up listening to was like Glenn Miller and
Yeah.
old stuff. Um, yes,
Yeah.
and the Etta James At Last was like the staple of my mom's repertoire, and that's why the Canary Act, which is inspired by my mother of all things, kind of weird, I think, in any other art form to have a striptease act inspired by your mom, but in a
Mhm.
showgirl way, it's like a tribute because
Right.
Um, but that was like the calling card through my whole childhood. It's like, Mom, not that song again. So it started early, and as a kid, I loved spies too. So Josephine Baker was in
Yep.
one of my books about spies. And I was reading about this. And Mata Hari too, because a lot of these showgirls, they were spies back in the day, and it's just so interesting to learn
I
about.
didn't. Well, go into that. What is it? What do you mean by
Oh
that?
boy.
Yeah.
So Mata Hari was one of the first like famous stripteasers, and she was like shot and killed for being a spy. And then Josephine Baker was like one of the first Americans to be given like French military honors at her funeral. She was a spy for the resistance during World War II.
Right.
Um, she was like one of the first um, like dancers that I was ever really like, wow, taken aback, like stunned by. She was the
Yeah.
one that did the banana dance. She rose to fame during the
So let me
1920s.
ask you a question. Do you want to be a spy?
If I'm not going to say on the record yes, but if the opportunity comes up, I don't know,
Why not?
maybe.
It's true.
I
True.
like my bird a lot though. Traveling means I have to not take my bird with me, so I don't know. We'll
Right.
see.
You do love that
Well,
bird.
it depends. It depends on who I'm spying for too.
Now,
It's a
what
lot
would
of
you say is the most, not the best moment in terms of your career, but like, what is like a moment that happened where you're like, it's just pure happiness? Like you remember the rest of your life regarding like either whether it be like a customer or like just like that cloud 9 effect where you're on stage where you're like, oh, I feel pretty good right now.
The first time I was ever on stage, like stripping for an audience, I think that I was very like on cloud nine then.
Right.
People ask like, what was it like the first time you like took your clothes off for an audience? And like, honestly, I felt at home. Like I'm a performer and I did it for the first time and I was like, this is exactly where I'm meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming back to it after leaving EMS, because I was having health issues and just like mental stuff, neurological stuff, passing out, getting dizzy, and like being
Right.
on that awake for 24 hours, not sleeping right, not eating was really jacking up my body and my brain. And I'm like, you know what? This stuff runs in my family. It's just not, I can't do it right now.
Right.
So then coming back to dancing from EMS and having like my first good night at the club and just being like, oh, this is where I'm meant to be. Having like good, respectful customers, having a good night. And not every night is like that, but it felt so good to be back in my element after like,
Right.
just like working myself to the point of exhaustion.
Almost, yeah.
Oh, I'm home.
But
So
so in terms of burlesque dancing, right, and like pole dancing slash stripping. Now, when I used to act, when I was on stage, the lights would create that silhouette effect where I can't see the audience. Does that go with the burlesque, or do you see every, like, you know what I'm saying, like that? Because that's what helped with my fear because did practices for almost a year or half a year or whatever. We went on stage, but they never told you like the audience, you can't see the audience. It's like, so that's that comfortability aspect. Do you have that when you strip or when you do burlesque, or is it like they're looking at you and you have to try to focus on that one individual that you feel has good vibes and go off that, or is it all in your head where you're like, I'm just doing it almost?
it entirely depends on the venue. So in terms of like commercial strip teasing and burlesque, I do both. They're it's the same concept, but different worlds, different crowds, different like marketing strategies and skill sets, whatever.
Right. I picture burlesque very much people in suits and cigars. And like there's diamonds everywhere and there's gold for some reason on the tables and there's that, yeah. There's the old woman with like the feather coming out of the hair that's clearly white and she has that elongated like Cruella cigarette thing and
the cigarette holder. I want
right.
one of those. I don't smoke cigarettes, but I want one.
Right? Just for fun. But no, go into it. So the differences between the two.
Burlesque is definitely not always like that.
Okay.
It can be, sure. It definitely can be. I'm not at that level yet, but I hope one day that I will get there. And
ladies and gentlemen,
if I keep at it, we'll come to that point eventually. But
right.
A lot of times, like you do see your audience because you're performing in restaurants, you're performing at private parties, which is mostly what I do. You're performing in bars, so you can see your audience most of the time. And audience interaction, in my opinion, makes me feel more comfortable, if anything.
Really?
Yeah, I grew up dancing ballet and whatever. Ballet is a very like formulaic thing.
Right.
You know, there's a dancer I really admire, Ginger Lee Valentine, and she talks about, you worry about doing the same moves over and over again. You want to watch ballet? That's all they do. So
right.
It's very, you know, it's formulaic and it's comforting, but for me to feel free and creative and to really dance, it's nice to have audience interaction. I like to be able to use them in my choreography. Like, here, you hold my glove while I take it off, or like, you know, stuff like that. Or here, undo this knot for me. There's a pinup I really like of a girl stripping at a sailor convention, and she's turned around to the back. She's got a bow in her corset. She goes, "Is anyone good with knots?" And all the sailors in the audience are
hey! That's cool.
So stuff like that, I think it makes it more fun, and it makes me more comfortable, if anything.
Gotcha.
It's not as
Have you ever had an act in burlesque, and this is me just like fan guying out, I guess I would just key phrase that, is when, okay, there's a guy that introduces you that's very, have you ever seen the movie Sucker Punch? Oh, well, like, have you ever had a guy introduce you where it's like, ladies and gentlemen, did it like that? You know what I'm talking about? And then like you have the feathers in front of your face, like, you like it goes into it. Like, I don't know, I'm just geeking out, but
not
like
that exact scenario, but I have had like, MCs that play up that sort of like voice, and it's delightful.
Got it.
It's delightful. I love it.
It's
I love,
interesting often you
creative people.
go into the. You said you can see everybody. That's interesting to me because it's like it's so. I don't know what's the word. Intimate to the point where it's like it can become off guarding, right? Like what should you say is more intimate, stripping or burlesque?
I think it depends on the dancer, quite honestly, because different performers definitely have different styles.
Okay.
I've seen girls in like commercial strip club settings, and I think I definitely put people off guard because I look the way I look. People expect me to be sort of reserved and whatever, but I'm not. I'm very high energy, and I'm in
Yeah.
your face. Like I came from a medicine background. Naked bodies mean nothing to me. Like
Got it.
I'm not shy.
I was gonna say
So
you're very you your idea of like wearing clothes versus not wearing clothes that I've noticed. There's almost nothing there. It's like it's like the same as putting in contact lenses to make an awful analogy, where it's like you just don't. It's just like brushing your teeth. You just go about it. You know, it's just like you just do it, and you're like, "Did you just brush your teeth?" It's like, yeah. It's like,
I do every morning, yeah.
right.
Every morning, right, you gotta. But yeah, I mean, when it becomes your job, it stops meaning anything to you. And maybe that's weird, but it's never meant anything to me, honestly. And
Wait, burlesque
naked,
and stripping?
no, being naked.
Oh, okay. I was like,
Being
what?
naked never meant
I start
anything.
taking all these signs down.
Oh no. Means the world. Burlesque and
Yeah,
stripping means the world to me. I adore it. But
got it. Being
being
naked
naked,
is like you could be in a nudist colony. It's like the same mentality where it's like means nothing.
I will
Gotcha.
say I've been I've been like contact. There's an interesting side of photography where it's people who
We'll
are
do that because that was the side I wanted to get into because you stated
oh sure
earlier where you said like hit me with anything. I've got hit him with the worst. Go
oh
since we
absolutely
know
like
your actually I don't even know if you said it. What was your best experience before we do the worst?
oh my best experience
Right, where you're on
just
cloud nine. Um,
just or just burlesque specifically.
both. I'd say for burlesque in terms of like well, for both burlesque and stripping, what was your best scenario with a client and just mentally for both
And just
class?
mentally. Mm, I think my favorite scenario with burlesque was I did a private party once where it was just it was a smaller gathering and it wasn't anything super fancy, but they were really happy to have me there. And I did 3 acts, and one of my pasties fell off, and it was a good time, and nobody made me feel
That's
about it.
awesome.
It was nobody made me feel uncomfortable about it, and they had a lot of questions, and uh, nobody really. It was a surprise. Like nobody really knew what I was, if that makes any sense, because sometimes when you say burlesque, it's like, oh, like the Christina Aguilera movie, and I'm like, no, I just want to shake
I'm
people.
not gonna lie, that was my first thing I was gonna bring up, and I tossed it aside because I was like,
Oh
when
man,
I think burlesque, I don't think the movie burlesque. I think of Chicago with Renee Zellweger and
yeah, close enough.
okay, I'll take close enough.
I like that movie a lot. I think that's probably closer to like a decent representation of like neo burlesque.
So, what would you
Where
say your best moment in stripping is?
best moment ever in stripping, coming back to it after a long time and having that first good night. I think I earned like $2,000 that night,
Yeah,
just having a good time and like working
sounds like
and
fun.
it's an excellent time. I love making money doing what I love. I love that I can do this for my job. And
Right.
I wake up grateful for that every single day. I'm like, God damn it, I'm so glad this works. So glad it's working out.
That's
Um,
phenomenal.
but yeah, my first good night and someone made it rain 20s on me. That's where a lot of that came from. And I
Yeah.
was like, this is great. Thank you. Thank you for appreciating this that much.
Yeah. So do you take because that's interesting. You take it as appreciation when they throw 20s, right? That's not like don't throw that at me. It's like, hey, they like it. So it's like it's almost like a cheer almost in like a chat or something. It's like you're cheering but with money.
It's weird to me when people are like, oh, I don't want to tip because I respect her. It's like, what? That's what you do when you respect someone. You give them a little dough.
Right. You give them a
Well,
donation. That's why they call it a donation.
I guess in stripping burlesque culture or whatever, like tipping someone is a way to show appreciation. Like you tip other dancers if they teach you a trick, or if someone mentors me or gives me a piece of advice that I think is really helpful, I'll go shout out like, okay, what's her cash app? I want to send her a couple dollars. Like,
Right.
because I used this and it helped me. So I'm always taken aback when people are like, oh, I respect you too much to tip you. I'm like, that's backwards.
I was like, do you have any money? That seems like a very polite way of saying it.
Like at a burlesque show, it's common to tip as well. Like at a drag show, it's common to tip. Like if you go to a drag show, you see people handing the performers money, or a burlesque show, you see,
Right.
it's what you do.
So do you still get anxiety about going on stage before like doing a strip act or a burlesque act? Like, before, take us through this scenario. It's like the way I see it from my perspective, and keep in mind I take everything from cartoons and like a couple movies, so I just picture like the curtains like separating, right? You hear music, spotlights are hitting you. You go up to the pole, you do your thing, and then you just like interact with the crowd a little bit, and you go back and it's like, hey, I did a good job. Is this something like that, or is it like less sexy?
Glamorous for sure, less glamorous.
Oh, damn it.
There's no putting in the spotlight. Definitely lights, but there's no like. I don't think most clubs have the energy or the resources to hire like a spotlight guy.
They have the LED strips like they keep plugged
they
in.
all kind of just go like this.
Yeah.
You know how they do. Like at raves and clubs and stuff.
Yeah.
But, you get called up to stage, and I've gone by many a name. I've gone by Cat, Crystal, Vixen, this, that, the other. Like, I've gone by everything under the sun.
Have you found a concrete name you want to stick by?
Honestly, I like Gail Bright for burlesque, and I'm trying to sort of get away from club work and get more into burlesque, and it's going
Okay.
fairly well. And honestly, I'd say anxiety-wise, I don't really get nervous before like commercial strip performances. I get a little nervous before burlesque performances, definitely,
Right.
just because I'm still sort of a new player.
There's
in,
tears
like,
to it
local,
almost.
Yeah, I'm still sort of a new player in like my local burlesque, like my local professional burlesque scene. So I don't like to be too like, look at me.
I can see it. Is it almost the mentality where like last night I was watching a burlesque, her name was Vita Von Teese, I think.
Dita Von Teese?
Yeah, Von Teese.
Dita's the she's the queen. She's the
Got it.
She's the president of burlesque. Basically.
Is it the idea that like stripping tends to be like almost one level? There's multi-levels, obviously, like the style of club and revenues, but it's the idea that like burlesque is almost like karate, where it's like there's a white belt, a yellow belt, and you don't want to screw up and go back to white belt, so it's like constantly trying to up your game to hit that black belt. I'm watching Cobra Kai, so be easy on me.
The Cobra Kai analogy, it's not bad.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily like a white belt black belt thing concretely. It's like a social white belt black belt thing. Like, I don't want to screw up, and I've got ADHD, and we're thinking autism as well.
Mm-hmm.
We're in talks with my psychiatrist about it. It's not formally diagnosed, so I don't like to go shouting it, because I'm a firm believer in like, go see somebody and like talk about it.
Yeah, that's what I did. I mean, I have OCD, bipolar, and a major depressive disorder at times. So it's like, I saw help, I got it, and I'm good.
Yeah, and I'm pro formal diagnosis, just because a lot of things present very similarly, and it's possible to be wrong about what you have and actually have something else that just looks the same. But anyway, all that to say, social interaction tends to be quite difficult, and I sometimes say things that come off a little incorrect, or a little socially, a little icky.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, when you're streaming on TikTok, you seem to be very, what's the word? You're like,
I'm blunt.
Yeah, if Jim Carrey had a TikTok, I feel like he'd sound like you. Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, not blonde, just like you're like Michael Scott from The Office. I'll say that. Like, when I watch you, it's very like, what is this? I don't know what this is. Like, you forget we're there. So much so that you're like, oh, my battery's low. Boop. And then it ends, and I'm like, she didn't get banned. I think she just forgot her phone was on. I think she forgot she had a phone.
very stream of consciousness, but I'm like that all the time. So like in social situations, I'm very conscious of like, am I saying the right thing right now? And I don't want to ever be in a situation with like another performer or in a class or something where I like, it's an opportunity to network and
Right.
I'm an orange belt and then I like say the wrong thing and it's like, ooh, I've socially downgraded myself to a yellow belt because now these people think I'm a little strange.
It's like saying that joke that nobody laughs at and you just have to sit there.
So I think
And you're like, okay.
all that backstory is to say that that's where my social belt level is concerned.
Got it.
Oh man, that sentence didn't work either. It's all right.
It's all good. But you do prefer burlesque over stripping. If you had to get rid of one of the two, you'd go burlesque, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. It's not even from like a customer base standpoint, although it is that as well. At least in my area, it's getting difficult to come across people who have good strip club etiquette.
Mm-hmm.
There are places where people do. Right now in my area, this is not the case. Do not know how to act.
Are they
But also
very handsy or just like verbally abusive or like?
all of the above, and like just don't understand how it works, and you know, folks kind of get the wrong idea about what strip clubs are there for sometimes, if you catch my drift. And
Right.
I,
They've
it's
seen too many X-rated films when they go
yeah.
into these cups.
So if if people who don't have a lot of experience like going to clubs and like having good manners and like understanding, okay, this is how this works, this is how the girls shifts work, this is what they're they don't make an hourly, they make tips, I need to tip the girls for their time, like people just don't understand that, and they think that they can get away with stuff that you can't do.
I
Like
always thought stripping was like it was kind of like a showcase of a female or male's like human body, and you like kind of sit there and you just kind of like enjoy it, and the enjoyment comes from like almost like a placebo effect where it's like in your mind, it's kind of like being at this terrible analogy at Disney World, but it's like you're there and it's like you feel like you're on cloud nine because like in every guy's head, I guarantee you, while they're looking at a woman dance and they're eating food, they're thinking they're like Scarface. They're thinking they're like on this next level tier, but the problem is some people go along with that placebo when they're there and they think they can do certain things that they can't, and it's like no, just enjoy the feeling you get and this entertainment, take it with you so you can be like, I felt like a king when I was there or a queen and I want to go back and that dancer was amazing and I had a good time. Am I wrong in thinking that, or is that pretty much concrete what it is?
and people don't realize like the more respectful you are and the more you realize like she's there to work, you can't, if she says no, you can't touch her there, like the more you respect the rules of the establishment, the better time you're going to have, like the cooler that dancer is going to be. They're not
Right.
going to get bitchy with you if you listen to them, and people unfortunately don't understand that, and it's so sad because it's like, oh, you could have had a great time, but
So,
yeah.
so yeah,
And
let's use
well,
this
that's
conversation to morph into the worst experiences you've had.
oh,
The ones that like just as good as just as bad just as good as the good ones. These are just as bad that kind of stick in your head like a scene from Hereditary or Midsummer where it's like it's stuck there.
oh boy. um well, okay, I had a bad experience with a burlesque client once where after booking a show,
Did you say a
um
burlesque seance?
no, a burlesque client.
Okay.
I don't offer seances. Let's
Scared
not
the
put
shit out of me right there. I was like, they do that?
yeah, I don't. I'm sure somebody probably does.
Right?
It's not a good thing. Yeah, no. Oh, there's a joke that reminds me of a joke. I've got a joke for you.
Okay.
A man who recently lost his wife goes into a department store. He says, "My wife used to buy my shirts. I need your help to figure out what size shirt I wear because she passed away and now I don't know." And the store guy at the store says, "Maybe a medium." He says, "Yeah, that way we can ask her."
Ah, a medium. Got it. Very well done.
didn't come up with that. I got that off the internet. So credits to whoever came
No,
up with
it's
that
good.
one.
I used to be addicted to the hokey pokey, but I turned myself around. I used to be addicted to soap too, but I got myself clean, so I don't know.
That one's better. I like that. I've heard
Okay.
that one's quite funny. They're both quite funny.
But
Oh
no,
man.
enough of this optimism. Worst experiences.
Anyway,
Yeah.
experiences. Yeah, I'm sorry I got us off track. I had a burlesque client, their husband, contact me afterwards and like try to book another private thing, and it was worded really strange, and that was weird.
Now, when you
That
say
was
private, have people booked you like one-on-one?
People have tried. I mean, I've recently instituted a new rule that I won't do parties of less than 5 people just for
Good.
safety reasons, because it's not that I don't trust.
You just don't have a safety net. You're there with a stranger, basically, and you're.
Yes.
It's like
if
you have nothing.
If I'm going to show up at your house, I would like to not be the only guest, is sort of where I'm coming from. So it's
Right.
like, if something happens to me, I'd like there to be witnesses.
Yeah. We
little
saw it.
Literally, yeah.
So, was that the worst experience? Because that's not that.
That's the worst. That's the worst burlesque experience. The worst.
What about stripping
experience would definitely. There's a lot of them, and they're all sort of in the same vein of like being grabbed, being groped.
So that's pretty much the highlight. You got it.
I was on stage, and I was sort of like this, and
Yep.
I was receiving a tip in the side of my,
Yep.
my bottom there, and the dude thinks that this is an appropriate time to try and move some fabric aside and shoot a shot there. And I was like, absolutely not. I slapped his hand. I was like, no. And
the hand slap is so like, he's like.
The woman was too stunned to speak. And Ernie the bouncer comes over. He's like, everything all right? I'm like, everything is not all right. And I'm like, you want to explain what just happened there? And the guy doesn't really speak great English. So he just kind of is looking at us. And I'm like, oh,
he's like, what did I do?
Like, I explained the situation, and it's stuff like that where people think like, oh, this is fine.
Right.
No, it's not fine.
You gotta. I think there's a reason why there's strip clubs. I think the age to enter is 18 still.
The age to work is 18. The age to get in is 21.
See, that's a good point. So the trouble with men, and you know what, I'm gonna say women because it's both sides, just more so men, is the idea that men have trouble controlling themselves at times, and if they're gonna go into an establishment that is, adult oriented, anything like that, you gotta have the mentality to control yourself, because it's like, if you can't, don't go in, because you're just setting yourself up to like lose there. So if it makes no sense, like if you're going to, I don't know, like a Hooters, it's like you're going to eat.
Yeah.
The side attraction is the women. You're going to eat. It's like, that's the idea. Don't go in there thinking like she's the one. It's like, it's not gonna happen.
Me and my partner, we went to Hooters for a 2-year anniversary. Like, we went not too long ago when we were on a beach trip. Like, we go to Hooters, and we're like, yeah, it's boobies and wings. Like,
right.
Great.
And then there's women. Heyo.
It's not like we don't make a point of like, yeah, look at her ass, but it's like we both enjoy.
You appreciate it. That's the idea.
And it's not weird, but we tip for their time and tip for their service, and that's it. It's like, we're going for wings. We're going to eat. Like, at the end of the day, we're not like, oh, you want to come home with us, baby? Like, that's fucking
I love how we have the same voice for a troll. It's like, hey, baby. You want to do...
I didn't realize they sound that way, but that's how they all sound.
I just came out of a swamp. It's like, what?
What is it? Oh, fuck damn it.
You got it.
It's the...
Where's it from? Hit me. I can help.
I can see it in my head, but I can't remember the name of it. It's the guy in the swamp, and he's like, oh, his name is like Freddie or Eddie or something. Oh God, I'll remember it. It'll come to me after this.
Yeah, he'll be like, son of a bitch.
I cannot for the life of me remember a single line from this YouTube video. But it's
if it's YouTube, I'm not sure. I'm not on YouTube that much.
It's an older viral video, and like I cannot for the life of me remember the name of it, but it's a classic. Ah, I'm blanking.
You'll get it.
Sorry.
You're good.
I'm going blank space, baby. Yeah, I got one.
But no, what I'd say is what's cool about just the like we're almost there in terms of switching over to the project. But what's cool about you, because I was on the oh my gosh, I was on Twitch, I was on Gig Salad. I was like, whenever I try to find somebody to work with, specifically like an individual, I've always tried to find people that have a creative nature. Like, I follow Nicole on Twitch, who's a chef, and she's ingenious, but she only has 20 views. I follow this girl named Ariel, and she's phenomenal, but she like it's so interesting how talent is perpetuated in society. So when I came across you, it was like Gail Bryan. I no lie, I was like, that's a clever name. So I was like, click, and then like as I started clicking and like I was like, okay, cool, she's in that area, and then I went. You had a link to your TikTok. I went to your TikTok, and the thing that blew my mind, and this is where I was like, I gotta go a little deeper, is you're rhinestoning on your dresses to be that meticulous. Like I was watching you, and it's like you have like like the pin needle with the diamond on it. It's like you're like doing one by one by one by one, and I was like, it's such endurance to a craft, and that's what I like appreciating because a lot of people these days, regardless if you're doing TikTok, Twitch, if you're a chef or director, they do the easy way out, which is like they're just going for the common trend. People always copy other people. They have to, if you're streaming, you have the subboard behind you, and you have like a low cut top or this. It's like the people that break the trend are the people that are so interesting to me because they're not conceding to the ideals of modern society. It's like they're doing their own thing, which is what we're created to do. So when I came across you, I was like, this person is a creative individual and I need to work with them like ASAP. That being said, what do you think? I had no question prepared for you. I was trying to segue to one. But no, I appreciate you. I really do because like I wouldn't have reached out for you if I didn't think in some art form you're creative, and it's like I made sure everybody out there that's listening is like subscribe to her tier 3. I did that on Patreon. Follow her on TikTok. Um, Anyone else in chat, I can try to plug some socials, but everyone needs to follow her because she is a very genuine, creative person. And as much as you say that your humor might be something that might cost you along the lines in terms of like interviews or burlesque, your quirkiness is what makes you who you are. Because the fact that you freaking like when I went on TikTok, and this was before I booked you, you went live and I was just kind of in the shadows like listening because I wanted to learn and see if you were the right one. Your quirkiness is what brought me in because I was like, there's nobody like this. That's the thing. It's like people are so inept to follow others, but you're just being yourself. So it makes me happy knowing there's people like you out there that just have that genuinity and
Thank you. That's
everything.
really sweet.